So what's up guys, GP30 Farmer here and welcome back to another video. Today I thought I'd do something different. I have a lot of model trains, as you've probably seen from my videos, and I often collect some of the more weird and obscure models out there. So I thought it'd be fun to put together a top 5 list of some of the weirdest and wackiest model trains I own. So yeah, let's get into the video. Starting off in 5th place is this lifelike Santa Fe GP38. Now I know what you're thinking, like, what's so odd about this engine? Well, let me tell you. So on the outside, this thing seems fairly standard. It's just your average lifelike model. But on the inside, this thing's a lot different. This engine has a reversed polarity from almost every single other engine I own. And I say almost, we'll get to that. And having a reverse polarity has led to some funny situations, to say the least. Oh boy, I sure can't wait to run this epic lash up. What? So yeah, that's why this thing is just so dang strange. Right, and moving on from number 5, we have number 4. And it is this thing. Now this is a double-ended doppelstock carriage that I picked up in a gift shop in Amsterdam. Now I made it a goal for my trip to Europe earlier this year to pick up a train from almost every country I visited if I could. And I nearly succeeded in that goal. I got this one from Amsterdam along with a wooden kit. I got a class, I believe it's a 6700 from France. Here, let me check. Yeah, I was right. A class 6700. And then I got a Hornby class 43 set when I was in the UK. This could also technically count as a train from Brussels, which I might just count as that if well, it's not if, it's when I get a Dutch train. I've got my eyes on a few right now. Spoilers. Anyway, so what makes this thing so weird is that it's advertised as 1/87 scale. And it does fit on HO scale track relatively well. But the thing is, it doesn't have bogies that can actually swivel, you know? And if I put this thing on the track and compare it to another engine, here, let me get one of the smallest engines I own. Right, so right here I've got a really freaking tiny Plymouth 040 diesel switcher. This shouldn't be like this, you know? This thing should be like dwarving this thing, you know, like this. But nope, this thing is really frickin' tiny for some reason. And it's also got these little, like, this coupling system on the front and back. You know, the ball on the front, yeah, the little ball on the front fits into the slot on the back. Wait. Anyways, yeah. you can get a bunch of these and connect them all together to get one really long train. And the thing about doppelstock carriages is, well, they're supposed to be, you know, carriages that can be like, that are supposed to be like hauled behind a locomotive, you know. But this thing has two cabs, one on each end, which leads me to believe that this should be a single unit powered rail car. And it doesn't have pantographs on it either, so it's likely a diesel rail car, which is definitely interesting. You know, I really wonder if there are self-propelled doppelstock carriages out there. If there are, I'll throw some images up on the screen now. And also another thing is, this thing is actually like, I only paid like, I don't know, let me check. I wonder if the price tag's on here. Yeah, I paid 24 euros for this coach. I'll put that into American dollars, you know, eventually. I'll put the American translation on the screen now. But yeah, this thing is like, for the price I paid, it is honestly really high quality. It's die cast for a start. Yeah. That is die cast. And it's also got a little interior, you know? This is so cool. It's even got a little bit of detail in the front, albeit unpainted. Who knows, maybe I'll unscrew this thing eventually and take it apart and then, you know, paint the interior, or maybe even replace the bogies with ones that can actually swivel. Who knows, maybe even one day I might even motorize this thing somehow. It'd have to be one of those really freaking small coreless motors that'll have to fit in like the bottom deck. But I think it could be possible. Anyways, yeah, this thing is actually so freaking cool and so weird at the same time. Anyways, on to the next thing. Right, and spot number 3 belongs to this thing right here. Now, this is a Tyco Santa Fe turbo train. I got this in a lot along with a Kodachrome GP20 and a Baltimore and Ohio F9 for my birthday back in 2021. That's actually what got me back into model trains after my, like, I don't know, 5-year hiatus since I was a kid. Excuse me, I need to get my drink. And this thing came with a Texaco car, a Union Pacific car, and a Burlington Northern car, as well as this futuristic caboose. And honestly, I want to love this thing so much. It's such a cool and fun design if it worked. Now let me demonstrate why it doesn't real quick. So how this thing like stays on the track, because this is supposed to be stored in like stunt sets. I've seen a loop-de-loop and jump set with this thing before. But the thing is, it's got these magnets on the underside that basically hold it to the track. You know? And so do the freight cars. But I don't know if it's just my track or if this thing's like gotten worse over time, but these magnets are so dang strong that this engine like can't even pull itself. It can't even pull itself around the track, let alone a single car. This thing, like even look at how free rolling this car is. It is so free rolling. Yet this engine can't pull it because its magnets are too dang strong. And I know I should also definitely clean the pickups, but this thing still picks up fairly well, and it wants to run, but it can't because it can't get traction, even with the traction tires it has. Does anyone else have this problem with their turbo trains? If they've got any, let me know. All right, that was number 3. And on to numero dos, or how do I say number 2 in German? Hey, me from the edit here. Apparently it's Nummer 2. So number 2 for the weirdest train I own is this thing right here. This is a lifelike Pennsylvania 260 switcher. And come on, just look at this. This is not a Pennsylvania steam locomotive. It's not even an American steam locomotive, for crying out loud. This is German. Yeah. So the funny thing about this engine is that you can tell right away that this is a German prototype. Like, even on here, like, the molding, you can see where they had to cut it off, where they had to cut off the buffers, and like this unsightly seam line. Ugh. And I did a bit of research last night, and I'm 90% sure this is based off of a BR24 260. Now, I don't know if lifelike actually made a BR24 or just picked up the tooling from some other manufacturer. That's likely it. But I have no idea why they decided to choose a German engine that also has a tank in the back of the cab for some reason. Like, what the heck is this? Is this supposed to be a tank engine? Were there BR24 tank engines? I know there were definitely BR24 tender engines. Just look at this thing. It's like, it's got the feed water heater built into the smoke box. Like, not built in, embedded into the smoke box. It's got the dynamo up here, the headlight up here, the weird, like, smoke box wheel that you turn, I guess. Yeah, this thing is honestly so weird. And the tender, let me just put this thing back on to the track. Like, if I put the tender out and bring it over, the tender does not match the vibe of the engine at all. I guarantee you this tender was literally just ripped off of one of their 040 switchers, because it matches those so much better. Honestly, this thing is just so weird. And also, this thing has never ran under my ownership because it has a split gear, which I have been trying to fix for ages. The motor still works just fine. The gear is just split, you know? Right, and that's number 2. Now, before we move on to number 1, let's have some honorable mentions first. Engines that didn't quite make the list, but are still weird and wacky in their own unique ways. So the first honorable mention we have is this Athearn Alco PA in the Denver and Rio Grande Western paint scheme. Well, a Denver and Rio Grande Western paint scheme. Now, the thing about this engine is that it's a weird, like, custom paint job, you know? If I take it off the track, I've already shown this off in a review once before, in my review of a few engines that I got at a dying model train shop. You can see it's got this weird custom Rio Grande Herald that's literally just RG. It's got Rio Grande on it in like one of the most basic typefaces ever, and it's got the number 90. As far as I'm aware, again, no Rio Grande PAs ever wore the number 90. And certainly none of them looked like this. but it's charming in its own way, you know? And it runs like, after you get it warmed up, it runs fairly decently. All right, so here's this guy. And second honorable mention, I'd also like to say that these are in like no particular order, is this thing. Oh boy. Just get him onto the track. Yes, so this is the Lionel American Freedom Train 4449. Now this thing's weird for a couple of reasons. For a start, this engine is one of those weird contracted out Lionel engines, you know? Like when Lionel did their, I believe it was their third foray into HO scale. Like, no, it was their second foray into HO scale, third into a smaller scale. Yeah. When Lionel did their second attempt at O scale in the 70s, they contracted out engines from like a bunch of different manufacturers. And this GS4 was, you know, this GS4 is a Bachmann tooling under the Lionel branding, which is honestly just, Lionel were really that freaking lazy. They really were. And the second thing that makes this weird is the paint job. Now, the keen amongst you have probably already noticed this. The area on top that's supposed to be, you know, black, like the smoke box, the skyline casing, the top of the tender, the area that's supposed to be black was painted in a dark blue. Which, I'll be honest, it's a vibe. It's actually a vibe. Because, like, the top of the actual 4449 when it pulled the American Freedom Train was black. But yeah, for some reason they decided to make the top of the engine a dark blue, while other areas that are supposed to be black, like this little area on the tender right here, and the trucks, you know, the rear truck, the pipes, the ladders, the wheels, all of that is black. I have no idea why they decide to make this artistic choice. Oh yeah, and I just noticed even the running boards, like even up here, the running board is that same dark blue. Yeah, I don't know why they decide to choose dark blue for the top of the engine, but I'll be honest, it's a vibe. It's actually a vibe. I kind of like this. I mean, I also really like the black that it's supposed to be, like all of this that's supposed to be black. I honestly like it either way. I honestly don't know which I like more, the blue or the black. But yeah, that's what makes this thing a bit odd. The final honorable mention before number one is this thing. You may already recognize it from the same video which I got the Alco PA from. But yeah, this thing is a Roundhouse 260. I believe it was one of their old-timey Santa Fe 260 kits that has been heavily modified and heavily repainted as well. So the weird thing about this engine is that it's got a lot of like custom, like it's got a lot of custom like quirks and paint job things on it. Like I'm sure the main one you can spot like right away is the Ridgeway on top. And also the cylinders have been painted. I'm going to need to touch those up. The engine's been given the number 3, and the pilot area that was gray on the original is now black. If I turn it to the side, you can see that this thing is lettered as South Pass and Southern number 3. And the weird thing about this is that it looks like the old Colorado, that someone originally lettered this as a Colorado and Southern engine before someone hastily scraped off the Colorado part and the original number and replaced it with their own decals, South Pass and Southern. And when I got this thing, it was definitely in pretty poor cosmetic condition and still is. The decals on this side are like fading off more and more every day. And I'm definitely gonna need to do a complete cleaning of this engine. Take off the old decals and slap on some new ones. And I think I've finally decided what I'm gonna do with this engine. So I'm going to re-letter this for my own fictional railroad, the Hartselle, South Park, and Southern, and letter it as their number 1. Now this name has evolved from the old Holy Southern on the Railroads Online save, which I'm still doing, by the way. I'll probably have a new video out eventually once my new computer charger arrives. But yeah, the Hartselle, South Park, and Southern has evolved from the old Holy Southern. I can't wait to actually start, filling out my fleet. And I think this engine is gonna be number 1. Let's get the track back into position and take number 1 off. And finally, the moment you've all been waiting for. The strangest locomotive in my collection. That honor goes to this little thing right here. So this is a Triang 040. I believe it's the same type as their Nelly 040. I believe the designation for this 040 under the Triang and Hornby brand was literally just the Nelly type, I believe. Corrects me if I'm wrong. Anyways, now this engine is honestly so weird. For starters, this is they dressed up a British 040 as an American design. They've put horn hooks on here, and there used to be a horn hook on here. You can see where the screw is supposed to be. But you can tell if you look at the front that yeah, this is clearly a British design. You can see these little bumps right here. This is where the buffers would go. It's got the circular smoke box dart, I believe it's called, and it's even got an area right here with a representation of a, hook and loop coupler. It's got one of those on the back too. They literally just took off the old, the old hook and loop coupler. Right? No, this is a, chain hook coupler, And yeah, they took off the old hook and loops and literally just replaced them with horn hooks and released this somewhere in the US. I'm still trying to figure out what set this thing originally came with. I want to say that this was part of a Santa Fe set because the numbering on the engine, the number 7744 on here, it always reminded me of Santa Fe engines. Now I know what you're thinking, oh, someone probably just modified this to be an American engine. No, I've seen multiple photos of this exact engine with horn hook couplers. And the strange thing is, I've even seen photos of this thing with hook and loop couplers. Triang even sold this exact engine in a British train set with a red hopper and a blue hopper, but replace the horn hooks with hook and loops. It's so weird. Alright, so hi, GP30 here from the edit again. I found where it came from. Alright, so basically what happened was, in 1967, this company called American Train and Track Corporation was founded with the sole purpose of importing and repackaging, like, foreign model trains as their own products. And one of these was the Triang 7744-040, along with a bunch of other trains, including Stephenson's Rocket. And the thing about these is that eventually they decided to Americanize some of the toolings by replacing their couplers with, well, NMRA compliant couplers, which at the time were horn hook couplers. So yeah, that basically explains the entire history of this engine. And in 1970, this trade stopped. And this 040 was repackaged and resold under the Precision Miniatures brand. And it even came in its own little freight set with a boxcar, gondola, and caboose. Honestly, this is so weird and fascinating. I had no idea about this. And yeah, that also explains why the engine appeared in Triang train sets at the time, too. That is so interesting. Also, just as a funny aside, Triang also made their own Americanized versions of their toolings. Like this Transcontinental 462 Pacific, number 1542. This is literally just the chassis from a Duchess and the tender of an A3, like with a new body slapped on. It is so hilarious. Anyways, back to the video. And another weird thing about this engine is that the clips that hold the body in have just completely just gone away, and I can take the body off whenever I please. And quite possibly the strangest thing about this engine, if I put the shell back on real quick. Come on. Here we go. Quite possibly the strangest thing about this engine is that it also has a reverse polarity from all of my other engines. So yeah, if you want to put this on the track with, say, the Plymouth from earlier, good luck. They're going to crash into each other and die, pretty much. And yeah, the reverse polarity has also led to me doing some funny things with this engine, shall we say. Alright, so fun fact, this locomotive has a reverse polarity from all my others, so you know what that means. Donkey train face off! And also, other weird things about this engine. The tires on the wheels occasionally like to pop off. Oh. He's dead, Jim. The screws on the coupling rods like to rattle themselves loose. Yeah, this thing's got almost every problem in the book. Yet somehow it still runs. It still runs. And that is the most impressive part to me. And the weird thing is, like, even when I was a kid when I had this thing, like, I've had this thing for longer than I can remember. Even as a kid, like, I tried putting it on the layout, it never wanted to run. And then 2 years ago, it just fired up out of nowhere. And I also vividly remember this thing having, like, an old Fowler tender. I've still got that somewhere. I need to find it. God. I wonder what that came with. I always thought it came with this engine, but I couldn't really prove it that it came with this engine because it had a different, like, it had a matte shade of black, while this thing's got, you know, a lot of gloss to it. But yeah, this is why I wholeheartedly believe this engine is the strangest thing in the collection. All right, so that's gonna do it for today's video. If you enjoyed this type of video and want to see more model train showcases on the channel, because I've also got quite a few in mind, let me know. So yeah, that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching and have a great rest of your day. Okay, bye.